broader international support to defend the principles of freedom of navigation. So maybe those are themes, and anything else, of course, that you want to get into. Minister, over to you.
Thank you. Look, I believe that we need to increase the political bandwidth in relation to this issue. And we are facing, if you simplify it, it's a primitive threat against one of the most advanced sectors of the economy. So we are talking about introducing technology as a way of countering what's happening. And in my speech, I tried to raise the issue that the Houthis are using very low-cost technology. They are now, of course, adding to that capacity. So how do you try and tackle that? First of all, the military, all the technology, the intel sharing is critical, as the Admiral has said. But I believe that what you have been lacking is the political discussion, the political discourse that would support and provide the necessary tools. And there are interesting questions relating to diplomatic collaboration. There was a question about respecting sovereignty, how you balance that with international forces. There is concern in some countries in this part of the world that there is an over-militarization of the Red Sea. So all of these, I believe, are issues that could be part of a very focused dialogue. And in a sense, I totally agree that we need to have more burden sharing, because everyone, in one way or another, is affected by what is happening. There are countries that have the capacity, the military means. Other smaller countries do not have that. They could have the industries, but the information sharing, the use of technology, clever kind of ways of tackling what's happening, the financing of these operations. All these, I believe, are issues that we could add to our toolbox. There is also, as I made the point earlier, the political signaling. And we have an EU mission in the area, speeders and so on, but at the same time, the paradox exists in the sense that we haven't listed the Houthis as a terrorist organization yet. There was a discussion a few years back. It didn't go through at the EU level. So it's a paradox because you have a mission. It's here. You have recognized the risk and the danger so that you have sent the mission. But at the same time, it's been approached as a political movement exclusively. So there is a toolbox there that if you unlock these options, it could add to the whole conversation into the mix. About CBMs in terms of treaties being ratified and so on, of course, this is a very well-regulated area. There are, of course, issues relating to gaps in the regulatory framework because it was introduced in a previous age. But anything that could add to the collaboration between states, I believe is something we should and we could be welcoming. So this asymmetry, we need to focus on that. We need to make sure also that we don't lose sight of the other side of the Red Sea. We are focusing on the Houthis, yes, but we can all see, I believe, a very serious risk now between the collaboration that the Houthis have with the African part, and with terrorist organizations, and with organizations and entities that are having access to technology that could enable them to cause similar kind of damage like the Houthis. And this, with the potential developments in Sudan, with presence of third countries trying to find the influence or to leverage influence there, this is creating a very complex, a bundle of threats whereby you could be facing an increase in the risk, not only from the Houthi side, but also from opposite. And I believe it's high time that we realize that the two are not separate. They are very much interconnected. There are serious issues relating to terrorism. There are serious issues relating to smuggling, issues relating to various other forms of violations of the basic principles underpinning the freedom of navigation. So a final point, for this to work, I believe we also need to make sure that we use all possible tracks. It's not just about diplomacy, but it's also not about the military aspect. There is something in between. And this is something also that I think we should be focusing on. We need to act with a sense of urgency, I believe. I agree that there is a fragmentation in terms of strategy and policy. There is duplication at the same time. I sincerely think that we need a strategy. We have too many. Everyone is trying to do it on their own, and I think that this is something that we could work together and try and divide somehow the workload. And for that to take place, of course, you need the political backing. Unfortunately, and this is the answer to the question whether the EU is doing enough or not, it certainly can do more. We can all do more. The main problem is getting the issue on the agenda. Exactly because there is a different assessment of threat based on geography to a large extent. So right now the EU threat assessment primarily is towards Russia with what's happening in Ukraine. So how do you get the attention in relation to that of the rest of the member states, not just the Mediterranean countries? I think it's clear that there is a commercial advantage to Russia, China and others from what's happening. We don't have a horizontal kind of situation where everyone is at the same risk. And this is not a political analysis. This is if one looks at the numbers from the underwriting in relation to the risks for vessels going through. It's clear that there is a differentiation there. So we have to have this conversation. We need to do more. Having more assets in the area would be the logical answer, perhaps. But going back to the point I made earlier, the threat we are facing and the technology we have against us doesn't necessarily mean that we have to operate on a level of warships. There could be some more imaginative way. I mean, the experts are here. But it's not like we're facing a military force in the conventional kind of way. What they are doing is they are creating a danger zone, the risk of being attacked. And this is something that's extremely difficult. So politically, we need to give the green light to the people on the ground. We need to give them as much of the resources as they need. We need to focus on intelligence sharing and preemptive action, and we need to have the conversation so that we can come up with one single holistic strategy.